to another episode of Say Yes to Travel, where we have been talking to individuals working in various aspects of the travel industry. And today's guest actually is going to be providing us with a really unique perspective. So you'll definitely want to tune in for this. Today, I have on Kelly Greytok, who is a registered nurse. She's a concierge nurse that specializes in plastic surgery recovery. Now, why is she here? Well, what's so great about what Kelly does is she actually works a lot with individuals that actually travel to have their medical procedures done. So kind of, dealing in this medical tourism sort of industry, I think she'll provide a really interesting perspective that we haven't had anybody yet on this podcast talk about. So without further ado, Kelly, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm so happy our industries are colliding.
I know. No, it's great. And, we had originally connected on social media. This is how people are connecting these days, which I love because you're able to increase your network really at your fingertips. But what I'm really excited, and we had talked about this before, kind of in preparing for today, but I love that you are bringing such a unique perspective to the world of travel. And, as I was kind of mentioning, because of being a medical industry professional, but you also work with many clients who are recovering from plastic surgery. That is, in fact, your specialty. But more than that, obviously, a lot of them have traveled for their procedures. And so why is this important for those of us working in hospitality is that they have to recover away from home. Ding, ding, ding. What does this mean? Many times in hotels. So, okay, this is where you come in, Kelly. Before I keep talking, I want to bring our listeners up to speed. So for an introduction, can you share a little bit about your background?
Yes, definitely. So I'm going to give you kind of the travel industry background. I don't normally say it this way, but this is relevant to you, and I love this story. So first job out of college, I worked at Pebble Beach Company. I was one of their, tournament coordinators. And so I was doing, all those kind of concierge type things for the golf course, the golf players. The golf players. My ex-boss would kill me. The golf players, the golfers.
The golfers.
So anyway, I wasn't a nurse at that point, but then one thing I really loved is something. Their mission statement is something about exceeding the expectations of every guest every time, or something like that. And I just love that. Became a nurse. I'm kind of giving you the quick. Then I really took that mission statement with me just in my nursing practice. And then ended up, because I love travel, ended up going on a self-led mission trip in India. And it rocked my world. And I really started thinking, I was a normal hospital nurse. And I really started thinking, how can I travel more, do more of this, these medical missions, and just do something different outside the box. And that's how I thought of this. And so now I think it's been about 2 years I'm doing this full time. I travel around a few different states and California, Nevada, and Florida, and just recover patients in hotel rooms. And I love it. And I try to, just exceed their expectations and just really kind of meet them where they're at and help them through a really vulnerable time and make it lovely and give them a great experience and then ultimately a great result.
I love that. And by the way, it's such a niche what you do. And it's so incredible that you pretty much have your fingers in the world enough that you are able to be, thought of and called upon to go to those different states, because I'm pretty sure, I don't know much about the medical industry, certainly in this aspect, but I'm pretty sure you probably have to have like a specific license in each of those states. Is that right?
Yes, actually, I haven't told anyone yet. I just last week applied for my New York license.
Oh.
So yes, it's kind of a process every time I get another licensure. Yeah,
I'm sure, but that's incredible. And it just shows that, obviously the versatility and where you can go and who you're going to be able to help as well.
Yes. Wonderful. Yes.
Okay. But this is so fascinating. Okay. So let's kind of and your background is so interesting. And by the way, I love that motto, because that is so much, that is like what hospitality is all about, exceeding those expectations. And it just goes to show that doesn't have to just apply within the confines of a hotel or within a restaurant. Or, I mean, all of us, if you are working with somebody, whether it's with a guest, a customer, a patient, whatever the terminology you want to use, there is hospitality with that, and that absolutely applies. So let's take a moment to talk about medical tourism. I mean, for those that might not be aware, this is a segment of the industry that's a pretty big one. So how big of a business is it? I mean, okay, we don't have to get crazy with numbers, but I mean, just to get an idea, I mean, it's huge, right?
It's huge, and I feel like it's just getting bigger. I mean, when I first started, I was more in patients' homes, and then all of a sudden started doing Airbnbs and hotels and people. I think I feel like definitely the pandemic has had something. There's been a shift. I think people were sitting at home and they were doing research and really connecting with surgeons that maybe weren't in their hometown, weren't in their country. And a lot of our top, America's top plastic surgeons go to other countries to do surgery. They go to, Dubai, they go to Turkey, and they have relations with all those other surgeons, and those surgeons come here and they work together. And so I feel like it's just exploded options for people. And then Zoom, I think we're a lot more comfortable with Zoom.
Definitely.
People are really comfortable having a consultation over Zoom. And I think these plastic surgeons have really pivoted and made it so that's now the standard, and it's acceptable, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, and it's great. I mean, it's what you're bringing up is, and actually, you did share a couple numbers with me just before. What were some of those?
So just in America, so just in the US, I just last year, I think it's 15.6 million cosmetic procedures, and then almost 6 million reconstructive. So that's all falls under the kind of umbrella of plastic surgery. And those numbers are growing every year. It doesn't matter, what the economy's doing, people are having plastic surgery.
And so interesting. I love how you brought up the fact that, probably because of the pandemic, people were just starting to research other options, maybe take this as an opportunity they can kind of go under the radar right now, things have just shifted in a way, and taking advantage of this different pace of life that we're living in right now to do those surgeries that maybe they always wanted to do, but they didn't know how they could do it in a discreet way, or take the time off, or whatever that might be. So it is really interesting, like what you're talking about, and it only makes sense that it's just kind of like growing from here. But I want to know, like, how specifically did the pandemic affect what you do? Like, I know that you mentioned, obviously, like Zoom calls, but like, are there different practices, and did it change more so? The other half of this question is, did it change as travel started opening back up again?
I have a few things to say on that. So a few things.
I asked you a
Well, I
lot of
think there's
questions.
I know. I'm excited. There's been a definite uptick in surgeries above the neck. So people, we're here Zooming right now. People are seeing themselves. They're seeing maybe necessarily what they don't like, want to fix, want to accentuate, and want to, keep up with maybe their younger colleagues, things like that. So there's definitely been an uptick in facial procedures. And then, that was my favorite part that I wanted to say. And just, I think the idea that these surgeons have made it really easy to connect with them, and people are thinking, I could go to this person, or I could go to someone I really like. Their messaging resonates with me. I've had a consultation. It was easy. They've paired me up with this hotel. It's this seamless experience. And if I'm going to spend a ton of money and a ton of time on myself, I want the best. I mean, a lot of people it's not uncommon to spend close to $100,000 on, your plastic surgery. And so why would you not fly across the country, fly to wherever you think that doctor is going to give you the result that you want?
Of course, of course. And now that we are so interconnected, so do you think, like, did things kind of have a little bit of a lull, like at the start of the pandemic, and then as travel opened back up, people continued, or like not continued, got back into it, or was it all kind of happening all throughout?
Well, I think it seemed to me that people got a little frenzied because elective surgery was stopped.
Yes, that's right.
So people were like sitting at home, like twiddling their thumbs, and looking at all this. And then all of a sudden, the surgeons were at home just like we were. They were, really sitting at home with nothing, not nothing to do, but they were like we all were. They're looking at their life, looking at their practice, looking at their website, looking at their staff, looking at the way they show up on social media. I saw a lot of the surgeons who kind of would let their person, whoever their designated person, run their social media. Now they're in it and they're showing it. And then they're seeing that people love that. And so I really felt like it shifted. And then the medical community, we've always been good at being clean and doing the right thing as far as safety. Now it's just a perception shift. Now we're just letting you all know. I mean, so it's just more, even, when I was at the hospital last year, it's like I would always, of course, wash my hands, but now I'm walking in, washing my hands because I want that person to know I've washed my hands. It's just like every time I go to recover a new client, I take their vital signs when we get to, wherever they're going to be sleeping. And I literally lay down, a cloth and wash everything, with these wipes that are these antimicrobial. And I've done it before. I did it after the last person, but I want them to see me doing it. It's all perception.
Well, we like to call it in the world of hospitality, we were calling it hygiene theater. Were they cleaning hotels before? Of course they were. Of course. But now instead of doing it behind the curtain so that like you didn't really have to like think about it or advertise it, now it's like, oh no, we are advertising how clean we are. Like it's on.
Exactly. I love that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I love that we're kind of like talking about the medical industry and then how it kind of relates to the travel industry. So the rest of the travel industry kind of saw this huge uptick in travel. Some were even calling I've been known to call it that too, revenge travel.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
would you say that because you were kind of hinting at this, but would you say that there was something similar in your segment of the industry?
Oh, for sure. I feel like I've been hearing from so many people that are like, whether they either totally let themselves go during quarantine or there were those people that were in it to win it, taking their life to the next level. Either way, both of those opposite ends of the continuum are wanting surgery. They're like, I'm not gonna put it off anymore, or something, I need an intervention, I need help with that. And I think too, I've had a few kind of family situations where, and this is definitely speaks to your industry where, the whole family, I'm meeting the whole family somewhere, they're all doing the vacation and then mom gets the surgery, family goes home, I stay with mom, or the husband stays and he's golfing while I'm recovering mom, or a lot of husband and wives were getting facelifts and they go have the vacation and then at the end stay at the same hotel and recover there.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Really
interesting. It's
fun.
like all these
Yeah.
really interesting ways that people are kind of like taking the most advantage of that time, especially being in a different location. It's so interesting, and it makes sense too. I mean, it definitely makes sense. So, in one of our correspondences, like before this, you had actually mentioned that you try to make your patients' hotel room feel more like their bedrooms, and it was funny because I think I'd written a blog post about how to make how to make your bedroom feel like a hotel room, and so it's like this very much. It's ultimately at the end of the day, it's all about comfort. So how do you do that? How do you help their patients make their hotel room feel more like being at home? And do you think hotels do a good job of making guests feel like they're at home?
I think there's a difference. I think that I've noticed when you're going to vacation, sometimes you want the escape and you want the loveliness of not being at home. But my favorite, I love when a patient chooses to recover in a hotel room. And sometimes, even if they live locally, they choose to recover in a hotel room. I think after doing this for a few years, I think that's ideal. And I do tell them, you definitely want to kind of, bring your favorite pillow if you can. Just be really mindful of how you set up your nightstand. Right now when you're not recovering, what do you like at your nightstand, and let's make sure we create that in the hotel room. So things like that. And what else did you ask me?
Do you think
Oh yeah.
hotels are doing a good job of making guests feel like they're at home?
I do. I think that there's a difference between being at home though and recovering. And so this is actually one, I was really excited to talk to you about this because I think this is a missed opportunity. And I know that all of your listeners, a lot of them are in, obviously this industry. And I just wish Um, I wish I could have what I really wish is I really wish, like, "Let's do this, kids. Everybody listen up. Here's how this is gonna go." You know, there's so many things that, even the plastic surgeons wouldn't think to recommend because they're not necessarily recovering patients. And I'm more and more staying with people for 3 and 4 days, and there are certain things that you wouldn't know if you kind of were in my spot. So I'd like to, like, give your listeners a few of those,
Yeah,
just
yeah. So,
little.
so to be clear, for hoteliers, we have been talking about how hoteliers, in general, do a pretty good job as far as curating these packages, maybe catering to those that might be traveling and recovering. But as Kelly and I were talking, there are a couple areas that maybe they're things that they're overlooking, which understandably so. Like unless you have gone through it yourself or you're living the day to day, you might not realize you might be overlooking things because patients, guests that are recovering in your hotel are different. They have different needs than guests who are there on vacation in your hotel. So, what are those things that they could do to better that?
So one thing is in, a lot of the little boutique hotels I recover in, there's no fridge or freezer, and so, I know, so I ask. I call, "Hey, can we get," and I will say that the concierge are always so lovely about whatever we can do. But one thing that's really important is ice packs, and so they need to. And I've recovered at a few places where they give ice packs, like the ones that go over the eye. A lot of the spa type really pretty stuff isn't doesn't really, it's just not relevant. Not to be negative, but it's just, not that helpful. So, but just having access to, a little freezer in the room, a little fridge in the room. I recovered a lady at a hotel that had a little kind of menu of kind of, and it was healthy food. So that was great that it was healthy, but it really, I felt, missed the mark as far as recovery food. And they were calling it recovery food. And, whenever somebody's recovering with, a facelift, it all has to be bite-sized pieces, really low sodium, high in fiber, high in protein, all those things. So I think it's brilliant if, they were to put together a little menu to cater to that, fresh fruits, fresh juices, but, everything small, just kind of thoughtful as far as whether you're having surgery above the neck or below the neck. There's this thing called a wedge pillow to pile up, a lot of times you have to be elevated, and to pile up a bunch of pillows, it just isn't, it's not
Doesn't
helpful, and
quite
it
do the
doesn't,
same
and
thing. Exactly.
doesn't. And these wedge pillows come compressed in a little box. And so I've started telling my patients, hey, ship it ahead of time. Ship it there. But I think it would be so cool for a hotel to say, hey, we've talked to, the experts. This is what they say you're going to need, and this is what we're offering you. I think it's just a way to really, really, exceed expectations and just make it wonderful. And a lot of time, the patients themselves won't even know these things because
They haven't done this before. Exactly.
never, right, exactly, exactly.
But you bring up a really good point, and to even like break this down for those like hoteliers, for example, that are listening, the simple process of okay, maybe that you might be a destination, or you are offering a specific package that caters to those recovering from medical procedures. Those little things by having wedge pillows, maybe it is creating a specific menu. Maybe it's all about like you're making like little smoothies or being mindful, like can they use a straw, can they not use a straw? Sometimes you can't use a straw depending on what is being done. I'm no professional, but I mean I'm aware of some of these things. So it's those, like the cost of what it might be to have a couple of wedge pillows on hand when you consider those who are staying for a medical procedure, they're generally not staying for one night. They're generally staying for longer stays. They are doing those week, 2, maybe even longer, depending on what might be going on. So if you understand that it's a very different type of guest as far as how long they're staying and how much in essence they are spending at the hotel, those little amenities to have on hand are just a drop in the bucket compared to how you're going to be able to, exactly as we've said many times, exceed their expectations because whoever's on staff already has an awareness of they might need this. Maybe they don't, but even just the thought of asking is so thoughtful and it goes a long way.
Right. And are you comfortable coming in the front entrance, or do you want us to take you around the other way? Um, and another thing I wanted to tell your listeners is there's something called a lymphatic drainage
Oh,
therapist.
yes.
So
Lymphatic
it's
drainage
kind of like
massage, but it's very different than a normal massage, right?
it's very different, and a lot of plastic surgeons prescribe it, and they're always not easy to find, and so that would be somebody, locally wherever you are, reach out and have some kind of in your Rolodex. I'm aging myself with that, but definitely have those on hand because that's a wonderful thing to be able to have people in your back pocket to offer that, when clients can't.
I love that you bring that up because I actually was asked specifically for that. And I had to go through, I work with a lot of massage therapists, and I had to go through and specifically speak to them. And then I was educated about it from the therapist. That's, some were like, no, I kind of am aware of it. And then speaking to somebody who actually did, and she broke down how it was different. And I was like, oh, wow. But then I knew who to call because again, it is very different, but that's a great point to bring
Like,
up.
I'm a massage I have my massage I don't hold a current license, but have my massage license, from back in the day, but it's very different than lymphatic
Yes.
and,
Yes.
so that's something that's important as well. Yeah. It's just so exciting to be able to offer something that's relevant and offer something that's gonna blow their mind
Mhm.
when they're vulnerable and they're spending a ton of time with you.
Yeah, a ton of time, and also, I mean, they're also spending money, and so it's like how but and they're okay doing that. That's the whole thing. It's okay, that is a choice that they have made, but, they are okay doing that if they feel good about it, and so that's the whole thing is, like, the little things that we can do to make them feel good about it, and again, because we are talking more about longer stays, and with the industry being as such, those should definitely be clients and guests that we should be more mindful of because again, they are the longer term guests are ones that really every hotel wants.
Oh, right, definitely.
Just even from a
Definitely.
business perspective. So, okay, to switch gears a little bit. So, where do you see in your crystal ball? No, but where do you see the future of medical tourism going? Will more people be? You kind of have hinted at it. More people might be opting for it. Will it evolve more than being just about recovering, or and then making it more about a whole experience? Like, what are you seeing now? And do you think, what do you think it'll? How will it shift going forward?
I think it's just the beginning. I think our world is becoming very small. And I think people are going to fall in love with that. They want a rhinoplasty, a nose job, and they're going to really fall in love with that, doctor in New York or that doctor in Miami or, Beverly Hills. And even if they have to maybe wait a little bit longer, save a little bit extra money, get the whole family on board to go with them to make it happen. I think it's happening.
Yes.
And I think it's happening more and more.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I mean, and I mean, again, you're sort of seeing it. So it is, and I like how you were kind of describing a bit earlier how you do have like couples that are coming and they're making this experience out of it. So it isn't necessarily just about recovery, but like, okay, we're taking the time to do this and enjoy ourselves the best we can while we're doing this.
Right. And there's I don't know if you've ever heard of recovery houses. A lot of and this is just my opinion, but I'm finding that more than ever, especially since the pandemic, they want safety, they want comfort, and they want connection. And so I'm finding that instead of being at a house with all the other people and the crossover of nurses, they want to be in a private, luxurious hotel room and have food delivered and just have the lymphatic therapist come to them. They want the privacy and they want the great experience on their own terms.
Oh, absolutely. We're definitely seeing this shift towards privacy and more exclusive experiences, and that only makes sense, especially in regards to this. So, um, do you have any advice for those that might be thinking about traveling to have a procedure done? Like, what should they be thinking of or taking into consideration?
I would say if you don't hire me, you need to have somebody with you, like have somebody great with you.
Yeah.
Or at least have your little vacation and then make sure you've kind of got somebody that is going to be your point person for recovery. I would just say, obviously ask questions of your surgeon's office as far as do they have any recommendations. A lot of times I see on the plastic surgeons websites where they're kind of in cahoots or they've lined up certain uh luxury hotels to kind of recover their patients. I would always, this is the main thing, I would always let the concierge or the staff know what you're going for. And even because it just makes a huge difference. I had a patient one time, she, of course, after I left, she didn't want to make the trek to the front desk to pick up her food. And I said, we need, please let me tell them what's happening. And once he let me tell them, the concierge, what was happening, the experience was totally different.
Completely. And that's a great point. I actually have always said that, is that always let them know what you're traveling for. Now, granted, you don't have to share too specific details. Like, it doesn't have to be this invasion of privacy. I understand that it certainly is a personal experience, but if you're like, hey, I'm going to be doing a procedure, I'm not going to be able to come down to the lobby, I will need help having things brought up to my room, whatever it is, if you let them know, of course, it's the hospitality business. They're going to bend over backwards to be able to help you. So, but you just have to like let them know what you might need. So that's a really, really good point.
Right. And privacy will be maintained. It's not, yes, of course.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's be my advice. Let them know and make sure you have somebody great with you that's going to recover you.
I love that. And it's simple, but it can make a huge difference. I mean, communication at the end of the day. So, I mean, so this has been so interesting. Like, you've been working on a couple of different things. And certainly your practice has grown over the past couple of years, but, anything that you're working on like in the future, should like we like stay tuned for, or what are you looking on? Are you launching anything different? I mean, obviously you mentioned getting your license for New York State. Anything else?
Yes, so I'm very excited about that. Yeah, that was my bit. That's the first time I've said it out loud, so that's exciting. I have a great. I can only practice in the states I'm licensed in as far as practice nursing. I do have a video series, like a 40-minute video series that applies to wherever you're having surgery, Australia, wherever you're having surgery, and it's just what to eat before and after, or how to manage your dressings and drains, how to set up your recovery space, whether it be in a hotel, how to get in and out of bed with your caregiver, all those things. I made that just because I kept running into people who I was either booked or they were calling from somewhere else. And I just, I'm one person. So I made that. So that's available on my website. It's a low price point. It's a no brainer and it's fun to watch. And it really makes a big difference.
Well, exactly, and that's the whole thing, is that obviously you were inspired to create that because you probably get a lot of the same questions, and so when you kind of realize that, oh, a lot of people are asking similar questions, how can I make this easier for them? And many times, many people, maybe they don't want to hop on a call and they do just want to hear it or read it or whatever it is. So it's great that you offer that.
Overall, I would say that the recovery is literally just as important, and any good surgeon would agree with me. The recovery is just as important as the surgery, and so the more planning and more thought you put into it, the better it's going to be. And as far as anyone in your industry that's listening, I love helping people be successful at this. So I definitely am happy to consult or help in any way I can, create packages or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, that was actually going to lead me to kind of, but as we're wrapping up, where can people find you and get in touch with you? Should they want to find out more on the video that you had done, or maybe they are a property and they're looking for some help in creating a package? How can they get in touch with you?
So my website is my first and last name, kellygreytok.com, or my Instagram is Kelly Greytok RN. You can get to both from both, and then you can get to that video series from both as well. And my contact information is on there. And you can tell, just like you're passionate about what you do, this is my passion.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
yeah, it's just, yeah, so fun. So definitely, yes, definitely check out my website.
I love that. I love it. By the way, this has been so great because you are providing like a very different look at the industry, but there is a cross section, and this is absolutely a segment of, the hospitality space that we really need to be increasingly more mindful of. So I thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, share a little bit of your experience, what you're kind of seeing in that world, and also kind of shining a light on what maybe other hoteliers or other individuals in the hospitality industry should be considering, being like, okay, there is a market here. And how does that apply to what we're offering. So thank you so much for today's conversation.
You're welcome. This was a great opportunity, Sarah. You're wonderful. This is so fun for me.
So fun, definitely. Well, I'll make sure to have all of Kelly's information in the show notes. So if you want to get in touch with her, we'll have all of the details there. In the meantime, if definitely be sure to check out the video. We also have the podcast on Spotify and iTunes. And don't forget to subscribe because we always have a new episode every Thursday coming out. Now, that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in for today's episode. Be sure to share it with a friend. And always, as I like to say, continue to say yes to travel.